Back on episode 164, and it was September 19th. Back in episode 164 of this podcast, I had an interview with Ashley Mae Fernandez, and we talked about the soul sciences. We talked about some things that are pretty woo, pretty mystical, and frankly, when you're first starting out in the soul sciences, it's likely you're going to find it too weird, too strange, too mystical, too impossible that, something like astrology, something like planetary alignments can be real and be, it can really identify like you and your life and where you're headed and where you've been and where you're going. But when I started on the journey of the soul sciences back in 2016 and I was introduced to them, I didn't believe them either. And soon after, I didn't believe them, but I was interested in learning more. That's the best way I can express it. I didn't believe them, but I was still interested in learning more. And I was consuming new knowledge and wisdom and new things at a rapid level, a rapid pace. And I found it interesting, intriguing, unbelievable, but interesting and intriguing. But this crazy phenomenon happened that the more I explored them, the more I saw the truth in them. Back on episode 164, and I would encourage you to go listen to it, we talked about the soul sciences, but I wanted to just bring this from my perspective today. I really want to unpack this thing a little bit more and what the soul sciences are and what benefit and value they can be in your life. Now, I've really never done a full podcast episode on this. I've talked about the soul sciences before, but I've never just jammed fully on the soul sciences because, there's still this part of me that thinks that most people aren't ready for this. So, but I'm just gonna jam. I'm just gonna open up the jar and let the cat out of the bag and do whatever other freaking cheeky metaphors, cliches that I could say. But I just want to jam and just fully open this topic for our ponderance. Now, there's multiple types of systems in the soul sciences. And what I'm talking about natal astrology. I'm talking about human design. I'm talking about the gene keys. There's the soul contracts. There's the life you were born to live. There's Mayan astrology. I mean, I've dabbled in all of these. There's an app on your phone called The Pattern, and I'm affiliated with none of this stuff. There's nothing financially in it for me in any of this. I just know the power of the soul sciences and this collective group of wisdom that'll help you get to know yourself at a much deeper level than you ever thought possible. Now, all of these most of these, not all of them, most of them start with basic natal astrology. Now, I'm not talking about horoscopes. We are not talking about horoscopes here. All right. When you think of astrology, you think of, opening a newspaper and turning to the astrology section where it says you're going to be lucky in love today. I mean, we're not talking about horoscopes and this thing telling you on a day-to-day basis exactly what your life is going to be. Natal astrology is basically where the planets were aligned and where they were sitting on the moment that you took your first inhale. And there's energy in each planet and each planet's influence and where the planet is the moment that you were born. Especially, the planets that are closest to the sun, Mercury and Mars and Venus and Earth and the close planets. Now, as we get farther out, Saturn, I'm going to throw Saturn and Jupiter in there as well, because as we get farther out, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, those planets have generational impacts, not personal impacts. They're called generational planets. And what I mean by that is the planets that are closest to the sun, they change and they rotate so fast around the sun. It is moment by moment and hour by hour, they're changing the energy and the quality of the energy that they're bringing to the world and they're bringing to your life. But the planets that are farther out, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, these are generational. They move so slow around the sun that it takes a long time for them to make a full revolution, hundreds of years in some cases, and they'll impact a generation instead of a person in the same way. And this is why we have generational change. And this is why generations of people act, think, believe, and behave differently than other generations of human beings. And we evolve and we change and we morph generationally. But when you're talking about personal planets, when you're talking about personal alignment, you're talking about the where the human being was born, where they were born, when they were born, at what time of day they were born, and where the planets were at that moment that were closest to the sun. And where they were placed when you were closest to the sun has a tremendous impact on the quality of energy that was captured in your genetic makeup. And it took me a long time to really understand this and to really believe it. But I'll share with you that if we sat down and we talked, me and you talked about the soul sciences, and I had you at my kitchen table and we were diagnosing natal astrology and human design and gene keys, there is not a doubt in my mind that you would get up and you would walk out of my house or walk away from me a believer. It's too much. It's too real to be untrue. Now, there are people that I've experienced that refuse, and I mean refuse because maybe it conflicts, they feel that it conflicts with their religion, or maybe, they don't want to be seen as someone who believes in something like this. And they refuse to allow a new perspective, a new tool, a new set of wisdom into their genetic makeup, into their operating system. And that's okay. They don't have to. No one has to believe this stuff. But when you really dive into this stuff, it will only change your entire life and how you perceive yourself. Now, when we talk about human design and the gene keys, these are other systems that basically kind of follow the flow of, or the model of natal astrology. And what I mean by that is the planetary placements where they are determine and create and influence your life purpose, the pain that you endure during the course of your life. And in human design and gene keys, it takes, instead of just saying that, a planet was in a sign, right? Like Mercury was in Leo. What it says is Mercury was in this exact sphere, this exact, ties back to a Chinese system called the I Ching, but it ties back into a specific segment that you get to explore, a specific philosophy, if you will, that you get to explore, that'll show you how your life would move from the shadow to the gift to enlightenment in that aspect. And it takes natal astrology to a more fine-tuned, useful, and helpful degree. When you start to understand that there is nothing coincidental and there's nothing mistaken about you, and you start to understand through natal astrology and human design and gene keys, when you start to understand that you are operating out of your blueprint, which is different than every single other person on the face of this planet, 8 billion people on the face of this planet, and none of us have the same genetic blueprint. from a soul sciences perspective. But when you see and experience that blueprint, it'll bring you a greater sense of acceptance and self-love, and it'll give you permission to feel authentic and to be authentic and to live from a place and from a seat of authenticity. Now, if you really look deeply, and I shared all those different systems, natal astrology, gene keys, human design, life you were born to live, Mayan astrology, all of these different, the pattern, all of these different systems. If you really look into the ones that are relevant for you and your chart, I guess you could say, your design, your profile, you're going to see the same story told out in all of these different platforms. And once you see the same story carried out through all these platforms, whether it be by where the planets were, or just what, even in soul contracts, your name, the name, your full legal name, like there's an intention, and there's a reason, and there's a purpose that your parents chose your name before you were born, because it felt like you, because that was the name that you were going to carry, and you're from that your energy wielded in a certain way. I know this sounds really mystical, and I know it sounds really like almost occultish, but when we really tap in to these forms of philosophy and these helpful and useful tools, we start to see the direction of our life, and we start to understand the flow of energy in our life, and why certain challenges show up, and why you feel so intuitively connected to a deeper understanding, but oftentimes you feel it's not okay for you to actually acknowledge and believe that intuitive knowing that you have. When I look at my gene keys, for instance, I have, and I'm just going to get into a little bit of the techniques or the mechanics of it. I have gene key 29 in my life's work, and what it means, I'm here to commit to a mission, and I'm here to learn how to say yes to what I want to say yes to, and no to what I want to say no to. But to know the difference, and to be able to surrender to that, and to surrender to the present moment, and surrender and commit to a mission. And when I read that, it felt so right for me. My greatest obstacle and my greatest challenge in this lifetime comes from gene key 30. And that's that there's a sense of a battle, some combat with that I feel over the course of my life, 52 years, with desire and overeating and over drinking, and like trying to fulfill so many desires in me that felt like I felt my whole life I was just being like pulled in different directions. There was always a deep obsessive desire in me, and I tried to solve all of them. And that's exactly what gene key 30 is. And that's my greatest challenge. And as I resolve my battle, my conflict, my struggle with desire, then I'm more apt and more capable of committing to my mission and living from a place of surrender. Gene key 8 is in a sphere for me called radiance. And what that is, what gene key 8 in the sphere of radiance, what it means is my authenticity makes me feel healthy. Radiance is what makes you feel healthy and brings power to your life, and brings power to who you are and how you feel, your personal power. And that's authenticity. The more authentic I am, the more I understand what's perfect for me and allow myself and choose to be that and do that and to have that, the more healthy and the more vital I feel, the more radiant I feel in this lifetime. And I have gene key 14 in the sphere of my life's work, or in my purpose, rather. Gene key 14 in the sphere of my purpose. And what that is to surrender to service and serve and empower myself and empower other people. And it also is a sphere of prosperity. Gene key 14 is a gene key of prosperity, which means money will never be a problem for me as long as I'm in my purpose. And you put those four together, and this is called your genius, unlocking your genius. When I commit to my mission, when I let go of the need to follow every desire, when I show up authentically, and when I serve from a place of shamelessness and empowerment, then it unlocks my ability to demonstrate and be in alignment with my unique genius. And when I read these, it was like I was reading myself from the inside out. And there's no way, like I can go and read somebody else's profile. I can go and read some of these other gene keys or gates. They're called gates in human design. I can read some of these in other formats for somebody else, and they won't feel like home, but mine feels like home. But if I give them theirs and I let them connect with theirs and I let them read theirs, it will feel like home for them. And I've had so many people, when they tap into their soul sciences and they really dive in and they really surrender to it, allow, accept, they eventually embrace it. And it allows them to unlock levels of authenticity and personal power and self-belief that they never thought possible. Now, I am an avid student of the soul sciences, and I believe in some really woo, mystical, magical things. And I use them in my life, and they've allowed me to transform my life. And I've shared them with people in my family, and some people in my family love them, and some people in my family don't. I've shared them with friends, and some of my friends love them, and some of my friends don't. But in the Inner Wealth Mastermind, we actually have a call every other Wednesday where I teach you how to learn your soul sciences. And I teach you how to learn all about your genetic design and what you're predisposed for and what your purpose is and what you're here to conquer and what you're here to overcome. And I teach how to study the soul sciences. No one can teach you who you are, but I can teach you how to fish instead of giving you a fish. And I teach the soul sciences so that all of our students can learn how to create more wealth in their life. So our students know how to never have to work ever again. And what I mean by that is get so deep into your purpose and your purpose work that creates prosperity that your life will never feel like you're working again. And work, you will rearrange the definition of work in your life. When you look at the Inner Wealth podcast, when you look at my blogs, when you look at the books that I'm writing or that I've written and I'm writing, when you look at the teaching work and the coaching work and the spiritual teaching work that I do, it's basically reading from my gene keys and my human design. Inside of my human design, it describes that I walk fast, that I talk fast, that I'm a very powerful speaker. I can see it in my genetic blueprint. I can see why. And I can also see where other people are not such a powerful speaker and they're not here to become a powerful speaker. But they have another challenge. They have another path. They have another purpose that they get to tap into. And natal astrology, gene keys, human design, these things can tap into all of this so that you understand yourself at a deeper level. And in that Inner Wealth Mastermind Soul Sciences call, those people are unlocking layers and levels of themselves and understanding themselves at a deeper level than ever before. And it's opening their eyes to really make sense of what's happened up to their life and where the energy and where the flow in their life is going and where it's heading. Listen, I've been kind of hesitant to share some of this stuff with the world because there's times where I share it with people and they shut it down. So when I'm talking about sharing this in a podcast, this is an act of courage for me. This is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm finally letting all of me out in the world. But there was also a time where I was afraid of leading meditation in a group setting. And when I did that, everybody started leaning into it and started asking for more. Now, you don't have to run out and look at your natal astrology chart or find your gene keys or find soul sciences. You don't, there's a book called The Life You Were Born to Live. Read that and it will change your life. You don't have to go out and explore the soul contracts or Mayan astrology. You don't have to do any of this. But if you are ready to understand yourself at a deeper level, I would at least at a minimum, go grab the book, The Life You Were Born to Live by Dan Millman, and crack it. It's numerology, and it'll help you understand where your life has been, where it is now, and where the energy in your life is going. And once you tap into these things, you'll see that by tapping into them, you will have an advantage over other people that they don't even understand. And you'll start to win at life in every aspect of your life. It'll unlock new levels of potential and purpose. It'll help you tap into your passions in this world. You don't have to eat the fruit and spit out the seeds. But if you do, you can thank yourself for making that decision. Listen, the gene keys, human design, natal astrology, these things are tools. They can't tell you who you are exactly, but they will help you see yourself with a clearer lens and diagnose and find yourself at a deeper level. I would love to have a discussion with you about the soul sciences. If you're interested in learning more, on each podcast episode in the show notes, it says text me. Drop me a text and I'll start to share with you where you can access some of these resources. And I'd love to have a conversation with you. Text me and we'll get the conversation started.